Greetings, chess fans. It's time to have a look at the round 4 game of Levi Rosman, aka GothamChess, playing against Swedish chess legend in the highly anticipated Battle of Generations played in the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. Uh, wait, something is weird. Wait a sec. The mask is still on. My apologies. Yeah, I mean, I should have taken it off. Today we have quite a special day here, obviously celebrating Halloween. Let's get on with this and have a look what happened in the game. So Pia once again opened with move d4, so she was leading in the match, 2 points against 1, and Levi was looking to get fight in this game, so that's why he played knight f6, unlike the first game where he opted for a different kind of approach. So Pia played c4, e6, and knight f3, and the nuance about this opening is that Pia really likes to play the cosplay structure. So that's why Levi is avoiding to play d5, and by the way, if Pia plays knight c3, Levi is willing to play bishop b4, the Nimzo defense, which is a very, very nice combative opening. And that's why Pia played knight f3, and she was basically anticipating Levi to play d5 so that she can play knight c3, essentially repeating the game 1. And now comes the surprise, h6. I just absolutely love this move, even though it's just for one game. Again, the point is that after knight c3, black keeps the opportunity to play d5 and avoid all of these ideas with bishop g5, or again enter the bishop b4, some Nimzo-like position where the h6 move is kind of a waste of a time, but maybe it's not. So this was a very smart choice. Pia played g3, and now Levi played bishop b4 check, provoking the bishop on d2 and play bishop e7. So maybe this might seem as a waste of time, but actually in some positions, after black is going to play d5 and eventually threaten with d-takes on c4, this bishop on d2 now blocks the queen. So you see, I'm going to show you in a moment here. So Pia played bishop g2, essentially reaching some sort of a Catalan. Now Levi played e5, and here, after short castle, he can already threaten in some lines to take on c4, and for white, it could be a bit more problematic to recapture this pawn. So after c6, Pia played quite a normal move, queen c2, short castle, so we reached pretty thematical position of the Catalan. The h6 is quite a trendy move. In some lines, it's a useful move. Sometimes it's a waste of time. White played the typical move rook d1, Levi played knight e7, all of this makes perfect sense. There's also this opportunity to play knight e4, sorry, pardon my arrow, knight e4 f5, enters some sort of a stonewall position. Knight e7, of course, is completely fine. And after bishop f4, here came the first testing move. So Levi played knight h5, and after bishop c1, knight f6, this is a very well-known draw offer. I mean, it doesn't mean that Levi wants a draw, but it's not a bad idea to find out what Pia wants. If you remember, the second game in the match where Pia was playing with the white color, she opted for a threshold repetition right after the opening. This time Pia said no. So she played b3, and now Levi came up with the move b5. So b5 is a pretty common move in these positions. Black is thinking about moves like maybe a5 or bishop a6, applying some pressure against the pawn on c4. So white probably, at least according to an engine, has to play something like c5. But again, it's not so simple, because typically for these positions, black gets to play knight e4 and f5, reaching some sort of a Dutch stonewall position, and white is supposed to play at the queen side. Well, the queen side here is locked, so that's why it's actually not so simple here for white to go for this continuation, and black just continues to organize a kingside attack. That's why here Pia played knight c3. Engine here also prefers perhaps the more cautious knight b to d2, but knight c3 is a very common idea in these positions. The engine marks this as a mistake. No, I don't think it's a mistake, because white is quite happy to sacrifice the pawn on c4 so that she can play e4, have a powerful center, and this pawn on c4, it's not really clear if it matters at all, because at some point, if black plays c5, white can play d5 and establish a very powerful center. As you can see, black has just useless pawns here, and white has a very active game. Now that's why here Levi played bishop a6, again threatening to take on c4, and if white now plays c5, play b4, open the lines with bishop, and then continue with knight e4 and f5, That's why Pia decided to play knight e2. All of these moves make perfect sense. However, here, this is a very risky approach because white essentially is behind in development and Pia did not feel the danger. So Levy here played rook c8, applying some pressure at the c file, clearly already thinking at c5, and now the problem for crumbling is that she cannot play c5. Why? Because now black plays b4, and you see just because of this knight on d2 maneuver, the pawn on e2 is going to be under attack. This knight moves, the pawn on e2 falls, and to make it worse, the rook on e1 is under attack as well. So that's why this was quite unexpected turn of events for the experienced Swedish Grandmaster. She played e4, these are typical moves, but now actually you see she's in big trouble. So here Levy played c5, which is a pretty decent move. Maybe slightly stronger was to play b takes on c4, b takes on c4, and now play c5 to take away some capture ideas for white on b5. I'm actually a bit surprised he didn't include this trade. I thought this was a bit more natural, but even this position is not so easy to understand. For example, e takes on d5, c takes on d4, white can just take on e6, put the knight on e4, but black is better because black controls the center and the pawn on c4 is weak. So it's quite difficult to make the correct assessment in this position because there's so many captures to calculate. Levy decided to play c5, and now Pia had to include knight b5, which was the best defense. For example, after knight b5 takes, c takes on d4, white plays queen b1 is slightly worse, the position is holdable. But here she played d takes on c5. And now after b takes on c4, Levy walked past an amazing opportunity, which he did a move later. So here he could have played bishop takes on c5. Where's the catch? Suddenly it's very difficult for white to parry this very dangerous bishop takes on f2, knight g4, and queen b6 check. It's just almost impossible. Because look at this. After e takes on d6, bishop takes on f2 check. If white takes it, there's knight g4 check. If white goes here, there's queen b6 check. And I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a smothered mate. Knight f2, knight h3, queen g1, knight f2, hasta la vista. Right? This game is essentially over. And if white goes something like king e1, the position is incredibly dangerous. The king's in the center. You should have seen some of the immortal games of Robert James Fisher. So here after bishop takes f2, maybe white can play something like king h1, but black just applies incredible pressure, and at the end of the day is simply out material. And to make things even more crazier, after bishop takes on c5, if white plays here h3, even here bishop takes on f2 is a possibility, because after king f2, queen b6, king f1, there's some mind-boggling attack with knight e5. I mean, white is up a piece, but white is losing, because I mean this pin at the c file, this pin along the diagonal, the unfortunate placement of the king, and the very poor development just dooms white. Well, this would have been a very amazing concept if Levy had picked this up. But instead he played b takes on c4, which allowed Pia to restore the balance once again in the game. So she played e takes on d5, e takes on d5, and now she missed a critical idea. So she played the typical move b takes on c4 as she's supposed to play in this position, but she walked past this knight takes on c4 sacrifice. Now the point is that after d takes on c4, suddenly white has the option of c6. You see you cannot take it, the bishop on g2 protects it, and this line is just crazy. I mean, black can play queen a5, apply the pressure at the knight on c3, walk away from the pin. After c takes on d7, there's an intermezzo move, c takes on b3, and what on earth is this even? A takes on b3, queen takes on a1, d takes on c8, queen, rook takes on c8, bishop b2, and the game in the end is level. It's just one of the lines that Pia had to calculate. She was not sure, probably maybe she didn't even see this move, and she played b takes on c4. Now again Levy played bishop takes on c5, and this idea bishop takes on f2 and knight g4 once again is on the table. So Pia is a very experienced grandmaster. She felt that this is very dangerous, even though the engine says that knight takes on d5 might be somehow playable. But I mean, you have to understand that bishop f2, king f2, knight g4 check, it just looks so dangerous, you just don't want to go there. Even knight e5, queen f6, queen a1, there's so many motives here you have to calculate very carefully. So she decided to give up a pawn. Now Levy took the pawn on c4, and at the end of the day, white simply has no compensation for the lost pawn. She tried to normalize the position because this is typically what very strong grandmasters are doing. After knight e6, the problem is that white is not equalizing, d4 is a big threat, and after a couple of moves, queen b2, d4 came in, Knight e4 was a mistake and already difficult position. And after bishop d5, the verdict is black is winning. So Levy is winning this, and Pia cannot take on d4 because the bishop on e4 is under attack, so she had to play queen b1, and this was a very big moment of the game. So Levy had 8 minutes on the clock, Pia had 3, and it just feels the position is winning. But where is the killing shot? So here, Levy had a couple of opportunities. Maybe the most direct is f5, because if white takes on d5, black preserves the pawn and f4 is a big threat. And the point is after bishop takes on f5, this wins in tactile fashion. D takes on e3, bishop e6, sacrifice the queen. And after rook takes on d8, intermezzo check on f2, king g2, and just coolly take on d8, because this pawn is gonna cost white some more material. Bishop d5 is incoming, at some point bishop c4, and white is losing a lot of material. Alternatively, Levy could have played also something like rook e8, instead he decided to take on e3. Now, here, Pia had to take on d5 with the rook, she decided to take with the bishop, and now this was losing on the spot, because again Levy could have played e2, the very tempting move here, hit the rook cannot leave the d file because the bishop is hanging. Pia played rook d3, and now the winning move was queen f6, threatening with knight e4 and try to promote this pawn. For example, here white could play something like, I don't really know, maybe bishop takes on e6, f takes on e6, now this is a threat, queen e1, rook d8, now white cannot take on e2, the rook at a1 is under attack, and this position is simply lost. For example, rook e3, look at this cute trick, queen a1, here rook d1, and black wins. All of that was missed. Levy took on f2, but I mean, this move was very, very tempting, but I think that he should have felt that e2 is way more critical move, especially if white cannot win this pawn on e2, then it's very close to be promoting to a new piece. So we reached this position, and Pia was holding on with all her dear life. So after rook b8, queen d3, the players were approaching the time scramble. You could feel that maybe Levy already had misplayed the position here. Queen e5, bishop b3, knight g5, queen g2, and I think here what Levy had to formulate himself is that he wants to avoid any trade if possible, to keep as many pieces on the board and try to somehow exploit the weakened white king. Now here queen e3 was played, and unfortunately Levy decided to simplify the position because this is a typical response. When you are in time scramble, you want to have less pieces on the board so that you are not having such a great opportunity to blunder something. So rook c8 was played, Levy was threatening with rook c1 at some point, queen g1, Pia correctly estimated the queens are very dangerous, she has to get the queens off the board because then she can try to hold on with a position where she's down a pawn but with a very active rook, a very active bishop. So the time scramble, the game continued, Levy was avoiding the queen trade, and now at this moment here he missed after bishop d5, white's h4. Now the point is after knight e6, Cromley doesn't take on e6, she forces the queens off the board, and you could see in the expression of Levy, he felt he had misplayed this position. Now the game continued, and about here Levy was obviously still pushing, but he made a couple of inaccuracies, allowing Cromley to improve her pieces. So he played rook c7, he played h5, which is a bit slow move. I think here he had to go for activity, rook c3, a5, knight c5, try to press on weaknesses and do not allow white to go for an active defense. So h5 was a slow move, allowing white to play bishop b3, rook c3, and rook d7. There you go. Suddenly Levy realized he cannot take on g3 because bishop e6 is a big threat, so he had to resort to king f6, and after king g2, a5, rook a7, now black no longer was winning. So he continued to regroup the pieces, play g5, knight g5, and king g6, try to create the pass pawn on the king side, but white is too active, too active to lose this game. So this was a textbook defense by this experienced Swedish grandmaster. Here, I'm not really sure if rook e5 was a playable move. I was pretty sure that nobody would, in such circumstances, even consider take on e5 because white might just lose this endgame. So of course, Cromley did not do that. But eventually here, Levy didn't see anything else than just try to go for the pawn on g3. Now it seems like black wins a second pawn, but the pawn in f5 is falling even more. This is a theoretical draw. Even without the pawn on a2, with h and f pawns, this is a theoretical draw, and Cromley, of course, knows this. So she has a bonus to pawn on a2, so this should be a pretty trivial draw. However, things turned out to be not so simple because she was approaching the time scramble once again. And after king f4, instead of pushing forward a pawn, she decided to kill the pawn on h5. Now Levy played a very tricky move, rook a2 check, and after king h3, rook takes on a4. Here this king is very unfortunately placed. Had it been on f1 and something like rook on b3, this would be in the textbook Lucena position, and of course Pia knows these positions how to draw with ease. But with the king on h3 it's very tricky. So Levy continued to push, play at f5, play king e4, this king cannot easily get it here to f1, and after f4, king f3, now something happened, rook b3, rook e3, Pia plays rook b2, and now comes the crazy moment, rook a3, and Pia crumbling flags. She did not manage to make her move in time and she lost this theoretically drawn endgame. Now, we do not know for sure that this game would have ended a draw with a perfect play because Levy was applying incredible pressure for the entire game. Okay, he missed a couple of winning opportunities, so this still, of course, is a theoretically drawn endgame, but White would have to show very, very precisely how to draw this. Either way, huge victory and huge grind for GothamChess, and he ties the score in the match, and now the classical portion of the match is over. The score is tied with 6 points each or 2 points each with a classical sense. So tomorrow is the match is gonna continue with rapid games, and I think that even though Levy is not very happy with such kind of victory, a win is a win, as they say. I would always choose the worst victory over the most beautiful loss. So good things are happening. Yeah, come back tomorrow for another recap. And by the way, if you like my recap of this game, please press like. Also write a comment in the chat what you think about it and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy the holiday.